Hello my fellow Insect Glaive hunters, Ska Sensei here bringing you a breakdown of my pre and post Fatalis builds. This hunt is a challenge, but if you love the thrill of a tough fight, Fatalis is definitely the hunt for you. I've been asked a couple times here, so I just wanted to quickly go over my Insect Glaive builds before and after Fatalis and talk about some of the perks and the setups that I've used to help me get better at this monster and also being able to grind for the rest of the armor sets and the Fatalis eyes. Alright, so let's jump right in. Quick PSA though, if you aren't too aware of Fatalis' attack set, be sure to check out my previous videos. I have a video talking about his attacks and all his details for each attack, and also a tips video guide on how to really defeat the Black Dragon. So, my pre-Fatalis build here is pretty much a standard Insect Glaive meta. A 3-piece Kaiser with a 2-piece breaker primarily for the Master Touch perk that you get with the Kaiser, and the Agitator secret for extra attack with the Breaky. So, the weapon of choice here was the Elytron Embrace, and this is primarily because of the high dragon damage, but we do know that Fatalis has pretty bad hit zones, so I didn't push this dragon damage anymore on this build. Jewel wise is pretty standard, but I did make a couple of changes just to defeat Fatalis, and namely the big one is this Shaver Jewel. So this is the new Clutch Claw Jewel that boosts the Clutch Claw and lets light weapons tenderize in one weaken. This was extremely useful for this hunt. Fatalis moves around a lot, so being able to weaken one of his parts in one shot without thinking and without having to think about when I'm going to get my next Clutch Claw, it was so much more easier. I could focus on the damage, on breaking the head, all the other things that I had to think about during this hunt without thinking about the extra Clutch Claw. Definitely would recommend getting this jewel for this hunt. Pretty much after that, it also lets me keep my critical up, so because of that, as you can see here, my critical eye isn't maxed out, but I don't need that because it's a tenderizer build, and clutch clawing was almost a guarantee in this Fatalis hunt with weakness exploit maxed out, so I was able to get that extra 50% boost in affinity. We were all good after that. I also have the flight and aerial attack on this build, pretty standard. Aerial downward slashes, you do a lot of them in this hunt, so be sure to have this attack. Aside from that, there's a couple other things that really are pretty standard. My attack boost isn't maxed out on this build yet, and I have Fortify and Attack instead. Primarily that was very helpful for my special assignment. You have 5 lives in that special assignment, so you can actually be willing to lose 2 lives to get the maximum effect out of Fortify. Other than that though, honestly, if there's anything else, I would just replace this with another Attack 4 Jewel. I unfortunately don't have that. I've never been so lucky. RNGesus has not blessed me, so I couldn't put an Attack 4 Jewel. So instead of that, I just replace this with something pretty similar to just like Attack and Sprinter or something like that. Anything of these things will do, just because I don't have a second Attack Jewel. I also do have a Flawless and Medicine perk here. Now Flawless was pretty helpful in this hunt, and this is something that you can use once you get used to the hunt. For the first couple of hunts when I was using this build still, I didn't use it because I knew I would get hurt a lot, and I did. Fatalis hurts quite a bit. You honestly lose at least 50% health on most of his attacks without a really good defensive build, or if you don't have the Fatalis Armour. So using this was pretty useful, but I didn't max it out on my build. Instead, I put them on my Glider Mantle. Once you get used to the hunt, you can decide to switch that then, putting up Flawless and maybe bringing the attack jewels back down to your mantle. That works out as well. Other than that, pretty much very standard. I have some Vitality jewels on the build, which again, you just need that health. You will absolutely need Vitality on this build. Rocksteady I use, and this is kind of a personal preference. I put 2 Gobblers on my Rocksteady, and that's personally my playstyle. Like when I put on Rocksteady, I go full attack. I don't worry about my health. I go in and I just attack until my health gets down to 75-80% hurt, and then I just quickly back out, heal up really quickly, and I jump right back on in. So that's sort of my playstyle. It's not something that everyone can do, or not everyone should be doing, really, but that's just how I play it. So for Insect Glaive, I have that. Something I will recommend as well, just for showing purposes here as well, if you are taking too much damage with Fatalis, I would recommend putting a second health augment on your weapon. This will just help you get some attacks in and get your health much higher and keep yourself alive. Last note for pre-Fatalis builds, you can run Safi if you like, and this was my initial build that I proposed. High dragon damage, Shaver Jewel again to make sure I was getting those tenderizing, maxed out Challenger, and a Fury Charm for added attack. However, Fatalis' elemental hit zones aren't the best anyway, except for maybe his head, and to be honest though, this fight is very difficult to get it straight up damage on his head. You're going to have to alternate between the chest and the head for most of the attack, and even then, the head is only really open on big attacks like when he tumbles to the ground or when he breathes his big fire breath across the map. Additionally, I found myself getting hurt quite a bit on this hunt, especially in my very early Fatalis hunts when I didn't even have the Fatalis Armour. So using Safi was just a big risk, so for me, I just chose not to go with the Safi and instead use the boosted raw damage builds. And that honestly worked out a lot better. It was a little bit more comfier, and it was straight up enough damage to take down Fatalis and break his head at the same time. Post Fatalis build now. This is where the fun really begins. The weapon that I use here is the Fatalis Insect Glaive, and it's a great raw damage weapon. The armor is a 4-piece Fatalis and 1-piece Clovey legs, and I'll get to why that is in just a bit. But this set is freaking nuts, honestly. Being able to remove all the secret abilities, secret skill caps from anything for any jewels that you put on, oh my god, the best thing I've ever seen. I have two main builds for Fatalis using the Insect Glaive, and to be honest, you could use this for any monsters just with a few jewel adjustments, mainly because, as I said, the Fatalis weapons have such high raw damage. But for the purpose of this video, we'll talk about the Fatalis. So I have two builds here, one for hunting Fatalis in a team and one for hunting him solo. So let's talk about the team build first, because most of you will be doing that for the most part. The team build consists again of maxed out Challenger with this Challenge Charm and an extra jewel. You're going to have to put that jewel because we don't have the breaky armor anymore. I have an attack level 6 on this build, so you can see here. Again, I'm missing one, and that's primarily because I don't have a second attack 4 jewel, which would go right here instead of the sprinter attack, but F me, so I'm stuck with this. But if you have 2 attack 4 jewels, put it on, enjoy that maxed out attack boost. Flight and attack, again, very useful just for the aerial downward thrust. And then after that, the next couple of perks you can see here are all with protection. Now, Divine Blessing really is a divine blessing to have on your build. It's really a savior in this hunt. You really don't need this for other hunts, so if you're doing other monsters, you really don't need these. We can change these jewels out for something else, but for Fatalis, having Divine Blessing really makes the hunt more possible. And you can still get one-shotted for the most part at some points, because it still has a chance of being activated. It's always a chance of being activated, but with the secret perk, you take 60% less damage, and quite honestly, it procs really frequently. So yeah, Divine Blessing, really great for the Fatalis hunt, especially if you're going solo. It helps so much, at least until you're very accustomed to the hunt, you've done it multiple times, then maybe you can take it off. So moving around here as well, I have Brace level 1. Since Fatalis doesn't have too many spots, everyone kind of goes for the head in the end at some point, so at some point, everyone's going to be grouped up, especially when he gets knocked down. So not being flinched by your teammate is very crucial, and just again, with Insect Glaive as well, if you have all 3 Kinsect, this brace becomes level 2. So again, you can prevent yourself from being knocked. Tripping becomes reduced to a knockback, which is kind of helpful, and you boost your Kinsect extract effects. Power Prolonger is always nice, especially on an Insect Glaive. It's very nice to have. I love having it whenever I can fit it in. Unfortunately, the builds we had before couldn't really fit them in, but having that Power Prolonger just keeps your Kinsects charged for quite a bit longer, and it just helps you ignore that Kinsect. You don't have to think about it for a little bit longer. You can just focus on your damage. Destroyer is again key for Fatalis. Now this is absolutely important. You're going to need this if you're going to want to upgrade your weapons and armor and get more weapons for this. So you're going to have to grind for a couple of Fatalis Eye, which means breaking the head twice every hunt. Aside from that, I do have 2 flawless perks on this build, and as I mentioned before, it was quite dangerous to have, especially with your low res armor. But now with this Fatalis armor, max health is actually super possible, especially with Divine Blessing on the build, 1 health augment on the weapon, and the medicine perk that comes with the flawless jewel. That will literally help Dust of Life just pretty much keep you up to the max health and keep your attacks going. Flawless depths come with 20 plus attack, which is really nice when you have it maxed out. And the last perk that comes with this set is from the Clovey legs themselves. So the Clovey legs brings that 1 peak performance, gets you maxed out. So that's why I have these Clovey legs on this build. So having the flawless attack is really useful, and it adds to that general high raw damage that comes from this weapon. Again, this is huge raw damage, so just adding to that is just very helpful, and if you have max attack already maxed out with Challenger, you're pretty much set to go for raw damage. The raw just destroys any other weapon, and honestly, I don't even know if the element builds are going to be able to match this later on. We'll have to find out when AT Velkhana releases, But until then, like, we're pretty much on the road to just raw damage all over again. Last things I have on this build, again, heavy artillery is just nice to have on my glider mantle because I like to do the cannons, the ballistas, and the dragonator during this hunt. So if you're not the person that does those during the hunt, don't have this, put something else on. Honestly, this spot is really just open. You can change up the mantle even if you want. If you want temporal or anything else that you like, go for it. And again, I have Rock City just because Gobbler is my friend and that's my playstyle. I like to be able to jump in with Rock City, just damage, 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 heal, heal, damage, damage, damage. My solo build isn't too much more different than the team one, namely just a couple of jewels that are changed out here. You get rid of the brace because there's no teammates to flinch you, put another enhancer on, power prolonger, again you can focus less on the Insect, focus more on damaging. The other change was the hard fire resistance jewel, and I kind of put this on to match the TO Breaky armor. That armor specifically had more fire resistance so that when you ate it for element large, you were not burning at all. Whereas the Fatalis Armour doesn't have that fire resistance to begin with, so adding the hard res and then adding eating element up, you're all good, you won't burn throughout the entire hunt. And that's about it for my Fatalis Insect Glaive builds. Fatalis is a tough hunt, but I love using Insect Glaive on him, and it's a great choice for both group hunts and solo. Great aerial attacks, you can get some great head damage with it, and it's very versatile. So I wish you luck, my fellow Insect Glaive mains. Hope you guys enjoy the hunt as well afterwards. The Fatalis armor makes you literally a god. And with the new Shaver Jewel, god, I cannot stop using Insect Glaive now. It's just my best friend and I love it even more in Monster Hunter World. So till next time, my friends, stay safe, stay indoors, and keep hunting. Ska Sensei is out.